Sunday, July 28th. Dull morning. Fahrenheit 65 at 4 a.m. A shower between 4 and 5 a.m. Our inn seems upon a wide moor. The whitewashed church at some distance, standing alone its parish houses, so scattered. Off at 5:17 from Hide. Heaviest showers stop by the way at 6:22, a little distance from the post station at Skallerud. The man said if he was not too much hurried, he would take us to Vik through Eist, a post station. Narrow granite girt, fair sprinkled, unfertile valley. Farmers thinly strewed thin crops of corn. Off just before Skallerud at 6:37. About 8 a.m. observed white water lilies, lotus of the north, on the river and shallow lake. At 9:47, stop at picturesque customs house of Hogdal and pay a riksdollar, 32 shillings banco instead of 24 shillings. Banco as proposed by the man himself to avoid being searched. He owned giving anything, was not compulsory. I offered him a riksdollar note because I could not spare my small notes. The man had no change and quietly pocketed the whole. Off to the inn, close to the custom house. Could not have horses for 1.5 hours. Would have breakfasted, but had eaten of our rice pudding at 9. Alighted at the neat little wood inn at Hogdal, picturesque scattered little village or town. Had a good room to own ourselves, and sat inking over accounts and this little book till off again at 12:15. Talk about the road to Fredrikshall. Handbook says we might go to Hell or Westgård. It seems Hell is supprimé, removed. Must go to Westgård. Very beautiful drive from Hogdal. Rocky, woody, narrow, beautifully broken valley. Now road lying partly through a forest of pines. This now seems by far the most picturesque, beautiful stage since Gothenburg. It began to rain as we alighted at Hogdal, and though a gleam while we were there began again just before we set off, and from 12:15 for 50 minutes rained tremendously, raining all the way to the ferry, then almost fair for 15 minutes. The scenery at the ferry very beautiful, up and down the river equally beautiful, fine Melone, wooded granite or gneiss mountains, neat good-looking inn on the Norway side, and picturesque hut or two on the Swedish side, on which a new road, making to avoid the tremendously steep descent upon the ferry, should like to stay a day at the Norway side inn. Passport visé, ferry 2 shillings banco per person and $1 banco for carriages large or small. On Hogdal, horses took us forwards. Still room. The carriage embarked on the ferry raft or barge in 5 minutes and disembarked in the same, over in 10 minutes. At the ferry at 1:30, over at 1:45, off from there at 2, past Helle at 2:33, an old farmhouse, looking dilapidated, and at 2:35, alighted here, Westgård. Very nice looking wood-built farmhouse. Still room, and likely for nothing but rain. Fredrikshall, 3/4 of a mile off. Fredrikstad, 3.5 miles off. Horses from here to be in at first, they said 2 hours, then in half an hour, but would take us till 8 to reach Fredrikstad. Ordered dinner, sent off forbud carriage, looked about in the kitchen and etc. No fire in the company part of the house. Dinner, pork pancake with bacon inside, bread and butter and thick milk, everything good. Dinner from 4:20 to 5. Then inked over accounts and wrote so far off today till 6:15. Still rain. Glad we stopped here. Then getting change for 5 Norwegian species and counting it over etc. till 8. No difficulty in getting change here, as in Sweden where it seems as if it was not to be had. Very terribly rainy night, and Fahrenheit 61.5 now at 8 p.m. Monday, July 29th. Rain all night and very rainy morning, Fahrenheit 60.5 at 4 a.m. Off at 5:25, heavy rain from 5:35 to 6:50, then fair till 7:25. Gusland at 6:33, a farmhouse. At the ferry at Sandsund at 7:25, waited. Open barge at yesterday. Peep at Hafslund at 7:20, fine even at that distance. River, Glomma, at Sandsund, broad as the Thames at London Bridge, and about the same as ferry yesterday, or was that broader? Several houses, good village at Sandsund, and scattered along the water. Infinity of piles of 3-inch deals, boards of fir or pine wood, but narrow, perhaps 8 inches broad, much fair wood. Forest incoming, good road, but heavy from the quantity of rain. Have come through wide valley. Plain very picturesque. On board at 7:38, over at 7:45 in 3.5 minutes. Having put back, just as we had got off, or a carryall. Paid 1 mark, and en route again 7:48, and at Haraldstad at 8:16, off again at 8:33, breakfast at 9, rice cake. Very picturesque. Ferry at 9:23, over in 3 minutes, and off again at 9:28. Dousing rain all the way, beautiful. Sandyish road, very heavy from so much rain. Karlshus, single farmhouse. Dilling the same. Fine open country to Dilling, but rain all the way, a little thunder at Dilling and still rain. One range of hill and one fjord, after another, all the way from Haraldstad, at Moss 12:23. 15 minutes to going through it. Large good Norwegian town. Sawmills, piles of deal boards of wood, fjord, rough paved town, different coloured wood houses, a few 2 stories high houses in the neighbourhood, very picturesque, beautiful environs. Fair at least now at 12:55 and has been so for 5 or 6 minutes. Now in a fine pine forest, fine white moss, 3 or 4 inches long on the rocks. The master owner of the horses sent off his man and got up and drove himself from Moss. I perceive John's Swedish will not serve him perfectly in Norway. All the waters hereabout, after the great rain, black and pitty, crops much cleaner than in Sweden. Fenced fields all the way, all the fences wood, rails between 2 small tall stakes, as in Sweden, but here laid more or less slanting, sometimes horizontally. Houses or barns on wood posts. At Sonner at 2 a.m. Anne tried to sketch the church of wood unpainted, drawing of church buildings with steeple very near to the post house. Nice little churchyard, nice little village, a little beyond the post house. Now, at 2 3/4 mile post, 4 miles from Christiania, the man who was to drive would not put to his horses till paid 12 shillings for waiting, and would not drive off till the boy that drove us last was paid the same. Single house, little village at a little distance, ditto at Korsegården, and from here extensive plain surrounded at the left by wooded hill at the right. Rain again at 5:30. A little and not fair for an hour or 2. At Ski, a few tents and soldiers. At 6:11, we are just 2 miles from the Christiania. The man at Sundby said 5/8 mile in 45 minutes. Therefore, 1/8 equals 9 minutes, and 1 mile equals 72 minutes. Give 1 1/4 hour per mile and 15 minutes for changing horses. 1 1/2 hour per mile. From Skytsjorda to Prinsdal, slept a little, but took the reins from the boy, he went so slow, and drove the last 1/4 mile, and therefore at the station at 7:30. Elated at the Hotel du Nord, at Christiania, at 9:30. Full. The masters and mistress gave us their own room. Supper at 10 to 11:35, very rainy day. Fahrenheit 56.5 at 10:45 p.m. Steep, very fine descent upon Christiania, but though not dark, too dusky to see the scenery as we ought to have done. Tuesday, July 30th. Till 9:25 dressing and undoing bag etc. bag wet. Yesterday and day before my things a little wet, not much. The Macintosh lining a great safeguard, fine morning. Fahrenheit 68.5 at 8 a.m, breakfast at 10. Changed out room, gave passport to be visé stamped, out at 12:35. Half an hour lost about the museum, could not see it. Then off to the botanic garden. Halfway met the professor of mineralogy. He said it would rain. Returned. Went into the cathedral, walked about the town, returned home. Then off to the bookseller, but returned at 2:15, afraid of rain. Out again at 3:20 to the museum, 1.5 hours there, seeing the birds. Then at Zvonkovsky's to advertise for a guide, home at 6:30, dinner at 7:45, changed our habit shifts out at 8:15, about the carriage. The Norway horses must have wood instead of traces leather straps. Our lackey, Mr. Dolson, went with us, but left us to find out way back, as we could. I told the boy to pay him, and say I had no further occasion for him. Fine day till heavy showers for some minutes, and thunder and lightning at 2:35 afterwards, fair. Fahrenheit 67.25, now at 11:30 p.m. Botanic garden, well arranged and very picturesque ground. Veratum nigrum. Epilobium angustifolium. Numerous genus, study it. Rumex acetusum sorrel. Study this genus. Saxifraga longifolia. The tall species of the Pyrenees. Saxifraga geum. London pride. Saxifraga crassifolia. Saxifraga crassifolia cordata. The pink thing in the walk, John's garden at Shibden. Dianthus latifolius, Sweet William. Linaria stricta and vulgaris, common yellow snapdragon. Lotus, the yellow butterfly flower on the little field Bray at home that grows with the potentilla. Solidago gigantea, golden rod. Vaccinium myrtillus, bilberry. Vaccinium oleaginosum, cloudberry. Came in at 3:15 and sent off John Johnson, our new guide, to get his dinner at 4:25. Anne had some of our Devonshire gingerbread. Excellent. Warmed her stomach. Left her lying on the sofa and went to Vonkovsky's at 3:45. No. Rain and went at 4:15. Mr. Jäger much recommended Mr. Smith. Satisfied with Smith at 2.5 species a day. Brought him home with me, paid the bill, 2 $2 and 8 marks, including the 8 shillings for the coachman carriage charged 5 hours. Anne and Mr. Smith and I went to the coachmaker to see about the carriage. Home at 5:45, saw John's foot, very bad. Dinner at 6:15. Had Messrs. Smith and Jäger from 8 to 9 and the medicine doctor Kallevig to see John's foot. Wednesday, July 31st. Fair but dull. Fahrenheit 67.5 at 8 a.m. Breakfast at 8:40 to 9:15. Waited for carriage. Out at 9:55 to the castle. Sent back our new guide at 10:15, who brought the carriage at 10:30. Fine view from the castle of town and fjord. Took the carriage up the hill, the road we came to see the view. 4 shillings paid the woman at house, where we elated on coming away at 11:30. At the new palace at 12:10. Hexa-style portico and hall opening on the top of its 20 times 15 yards. Handsome room at the back of the staircase, columned. A Saxon at work at the Scagliola pilasters, ceilings boards, and 2 layers crossing each other, of reeds, put on with wire, floorboards 1.5 inch thick battens. Gave at the palace gate 4 shillings. Came away at 1:20 at the Botanic Garden at 1:40. Called at Vonkovsky's. Plenty of guides. Then to Hoppes for pencils for Anne and sent off the carriage at 2:50. From Hoppes' door and walked home. 40 shillings for 2 pencils. John's foot, a thing of old standing. Anne and I had coffee at 10. Fine day, but heavy showers at 3:45 for 20 minutes. Thursday, August 1st. Very fine morning. Sun and Fahrenheit 67.5 at 8 a.m. At my writing about 8:30 to Lady Stuart till breakfast at 10 to 11. Dawdling over one thing or other. Out at 11:35. Difficulty in finding Gruning and company till 12:10, then left to settle and walked about the quays near 45 minutes. A middle-aged gentleman asked if we were looking for anything. Civil conversation. He told us we could not possibly get to Bergen by the route I proposed. Back to the bank. Mademoiselle Bielka received 248 species, 40 shillings. Exchanged at 4 species, 116 shillings per £1. Home at 1:10. Mademoiselle Bielka sent to say she would call. Here from 1:30 to 2:15, past middle age, second-rate person, prosing. Would not understand her inquiries after Mrs. Courtenay Stewart. Gave Anne in paper 1 specie $2.50 2 marks equals 220 out. The Gothenburg money from 2:15 to 5:30 counting over money. Then again at my writing till dinner at 6:30. And had the waiter and then Mr. Smith till near 10. Then finished my note, 3 pages, and under the seal, small and close to Lady Stuart, Honourable Lady Stuart Lodge, Richmond Park, and then at inking over accounts till 1:25. Very fine day. Friday, August 2nd. Fine but dullish. Fahrenheit 66.5 at 9 a.m. Breakfast over in half an hour, 10:50. Writing to Lady Stuart de Rothesay till out at 11. At the Museum of Northern Antiques from 11:10 to 12:55, home at 1. The museum is small, but the professor of history and antiquities himself showed us the things and was very civil and spoke so well and slowly I understood a fourth of what he said by means of a few words of Latin now and then. There was an old thing like that found in digging away the clay of the laundry court at Shibden, which Harper said was modern and for shot, but which the professor here said was for the headstall, for something, ornament or something, of a very old sort of bridal crest, through which reins passed from the smallness of the holes. The reins must have been rope or thong. The Iceland calendar's interesting. The Lord Stuart de Rothesay, 4 Carlton House Terrace. Christiania, Friday, 2nd of August, 1839. My dear Lord Stuart, I send you a copy of the note I have received from Mr. Adam. You will best know what to make of it. Considering what passed before my leaving home, This note rather surprises me. I remain, my lord, very truly yours, A. Lister. To Messrs. Hammersley and Company, Bankers, London. Christiania, Friday 2nd, August 1839. Gentlemen, should any letters from Miss Walker or myself be directed to your care, I shall be much obliged to you to forward them to your bankers at Stockholm. I shall also be much obliged to you to forward the enclosed packet. I am, gentlemen, your obedient servant, A. Lister. Enclosed in this cover, my long note to Honourable Lady Stuart Lodge, Richmond Park, and my little quarter-sheet note to Lady Stuart the Rothesay, 4 Carlton House Terrace, London. Written perpendicular to the other text, continuing description of visit to the Musée des Northern Antiques, pure gold ring, money, that is gold twisted into a coil, and this cut into longer or shorter as the occasion might require. One valuable pure gold necklace that had ornamented some idol, several fibulae, brooches, clasps, iron, gold, silver, bronze. One very old glass, like a modern tumbler glass, but irisé iridescent, looking like talc. Off from Christiania at 4:10 p.m, left the letters at Grunings and paid the postage to Hamburg. Beautiful drive. Islandy fjords of Christiania and fine wooded mountains. At 5:20, 1 mile, found the wheels had not been greased and stopped and greased them in 10 minutes. Poor Smith knows nothing about these things. Then afterwards, if possible, more beautiful than before, very beautiful drive. Ravnsborg at 6:25, apparently 1 or 2 wood houses, or 1 farmhouse, with many outbuildings. Beautiful to Yellebekk, but less water, no fjords, but 2 or 3 little lakes. At Drammen at 9:10, tea and milk, and 2 boiled eggs, and butter at 9:55 to 10:20. Fine day. Fahrenheit 68.5 at 5:15 a.m. Saturday, August 3rd. Fahrenheit 68.5 at 5:15 a.m. Saw the carriage wheels greased, and all paid and done, and off from Drammen Hotel, the Scandinavie. Comfortable. At 5:50, excellent inn. As to rooms, goodish tea last night. No meat to be had, no fish but salmon. Good town, beautifully situated on the river-like fjord, and in fine Swiss-like valley. Great deal of timber lying in the river and about, rafts, and deals wooden boards. Everybody should see Drammen. Good roads. At Hoggsund, good village. At 7:35. Pole pin lost. Delayed an hour to get a new one made. Crossed the ferry in 8 minutes. Very pretty. The salmon leap in sight higher up the river. Still beautiful valley, but we have left our river. Mowing and haymaking at 9:25, and descend upon pretty lake, and see the high blue mountains in some distance. At Kongsberg at 11:10. Breakfast not well, chez Madame Samuelsen. Fine drive, and at Münster at 3:20, off at 5 on horseback, beautiful mountain valley. Our road through pine forest every now and then. Several wood cottages scattered here and there, 2 pretty lakes, and then the 2 lakes at Bulkesø. No, 1 lake, almost parted into 2. Arrived at 8:45. Beautiful situation. Very good wood house, surrounded by a village of little wooden outbuildings. Had excellent flatbrød and brandy and water, no fresh milk. Milk 1 month to 2 and 3 months old. The 1 month too sour and thick. Had the people till 10. Lay down at 10:30, merely taking off pelisse and goiters and shoes. Fine day. Sunday, August 4th. Rainy morning. Half an hour washing and taking off, and shaking our top clothes as well as we could. Slept well till near 9. Anne up an hour before me. Read aloud 5 and 6 chapters, Matthew, to me in bed. 1 basin, 1 towel. But china plates and dishes round the room. Took one of the latter for washing and did very well, dividing 1 towel, tied a knot at my end, each keeping to our own end. Then Anne sketched the interior of our room, and I walked about, till about 11, when Smith came. Explained the mottos round the room. Had flatbread and butter and cold water, declined coffee, and I ate cloudberries. This, and having the mother and son who showed us the 2 silver forks Baron Nikolai had given the oldest son and daughter, took till 12:15. It seems fair, and the fog is rising over the mountains. Sign of good weather? On looking over the protocol, found that the Earl of Hilborough was here 29 August 1833. Apparently Lord Canterlop with him. And 11 July 1833, Sir Hume Campbell and Captain Rose waited 8 hours here for horses. No fault of the people here. Baron von Nikolai with 2 sons and 2 daughters were here 18 July last. And in 1829, August 20th, an Italian writes this. Notice to lovers of romantic beauties. Rjukan Falls. It costs to see it, but we forgot the fatigue upon returning to the hotel, as we're happy with a pleasant memory. Gusta. It is better to praise than to die. You risk your legs and your neck for a glory that you share with goats. When by dint of fatigue we reach the top of the mountain, a thick cloud often deprives you of the pleasure of contemplating a picture that will never meet expectations. In a word, the game is not worth the candle. Dinner now at 2, with the family at our especial request, the mistress of the house, her daughter aged 18 and 3 menservants. I at the top, and then left Anne, the daughter and woman, except Madame at my request on my right, and then Smith and the son and menservants. 3 piles of flatbread, down and on the middle of the table, not on plates, and a round blue and white Delft-like dish of fried bacon and pig's ribs, cut in single ribs at the top, which Madame handed to me and Anne, and then it passed round, with a sauce made of Dravel cheese, curd and cream. This done, Madame and 1 woman servant went out to the kitchen, a detached building, and then followed the other women, and they brought a plate of salmon trout cut into small bits, and a thickish melted butter like basin of sauce, and a little fresh butter. This handed to Anne, me, and then passed round as before. Anne and I ate a little bread and butter, which nobody else touched, and then all was over. Perhaps in about 45 minutes, hour. It surprised me to see so little enough for all. Meet twice a week, and on Sunday dinner, eat at 6 and 9 a.m. and at 2 and 8 p.m. Everybody left the table, and Anne and I sauntered out to the kitchen and about the house, and then to the Stolpebod, raised storage building. That is, says Smith, a house on 4 posts without a chaumière. Bod, pronounced bood. Nothing particular in the kitchen. The fireplace in the corner and raised 12 or 15 inches above the ground. A table that turns up against the wall and fastens back, the foot turning up flat against the table. A table of this kind, too, in the room where we dined below our bedroom, that is also near the fire. Stolpebod. the storehouse where the dried meat, beef and bacon, and flour and bread and butter and cheese is kept. Nearer to the house than the kitchen, a small piece of garden ornamented by a few rows of fine tall hop plants. They malt their barley for beer after the same principle as we do, and then call it malt. The A pronounced as in the English hat. Flatbread made of 2/3 big barley and 1/3 potato, baked in May for the year, as thin as a wafer, perhaps 20 inches diameter, and piled one cake upon another 4 or 5 feet high, forming 5 or 6 rustic-looking columns. On one side, the room, en face, on entering, a large canteen or chest, larger than mine at home, would hold as much as the great oak chest, full of flour pressed down, fine sifted barley or big, 2 or 3 other sorts of flour, and 3 or 4 sorts of bread, another sort made like the flat bread, but, according to Smith's interpretation, thrown on bakestone upon a wet cloth, with a wet cloth over it, and folded while hot into a square of 4 folds, the proper size to pack in their havresack. They call oatmeal havre, for going into the forests. They have then a little wooden jar of goat and sheep's butter, and another of dravel, curd after making cheese. And on these 3 the peasants live. Tasted the butter, not bad, white, more like grease than cow's butter. In making the goat's and sheep's cheese, the milk of the 2 animals is milked. The cow's milk cheese is our old milk cheese, not eatable till a year old. The butter is the great thing that they're anxious for. This is, in fact, money and supplies the towns, all made up with much salt and well pressed down in wooden tubs. They fish in autumn and preserve it for the winter. The peasants, merry among themselves, never below their rank, never marry their servants. Ghosts are not visible all day, fair since noon and even fine from about 2 p.m, but still Ghoster is hid in clouds and mist. Determined at dinner to stay here till 3 a.m. tomorrow and then go to the mountains, or home again according to the weather, having sent a forbud towards the mountains, for if we do not go, we have only half to pay for the 3 horses for ourselves and 1 for the forbud. This now 6:45, just as I have written so far, sat inking over Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday last, till now 8:45. Rainy day till afterwards, fair and fine evening. Monday, August 5th. Off from Bolkesjø at 4:20, at the lake at 5:25, at the first huts at 6, apparently only 2 dwellings, the rest outbuildings. Fine morning. A pine forest all the way, almost all spruce. At 6:15, 2 or 3 more houses. At 6:35, another house, plenty of gates. At 6:40, scenery returning from Bolkesjø. The stream and sawmill and deals wooden boards and a hut or 2 on the other side of the water. Ling and water pools and bilberries and some juniper and alder and birch bushes and cranberries. The firs have no more than 6 inches of petty soil on the rock, and then 3 or 4, one good one, cottages. Pass close to them, and stolpebod, raised storage house, and several more scattered about in sight on the mountains, and again at 6:50 pass among 2 or 3 more huts, and here turn left. Very picturesque, fine mountain valley all along, and here more Scotch fir. At the carriage road at 6:55. At 7:10 another hut, and 3 or 4 more huts at a little distance. At 7:20 little cascade and corn mill on the other side of the water. Very picturesque. At 7:40 Anne and I dismounted to walk, stiff and sore. At 7:45 passed 2 or 3 huts. At Munster at 7:57. Søter or stol or house where the cattle is. Lade stall. Lade barn. And the doorway in the middle of the bad where one puts carriages is called låve stald. Stable. And for cows, fjøs. Walked about, ate our rice cake and had cold fresh milk and butter. Off at 9:50 from Monseter. Fine fir. Wooded, wideish mountain valley with cottages scattered up and down, and broadish shallow stream that comes down to Kongsberg, there at 10:57. Nobody knew where the post station was, and the woman took from me her 12 shillings for ordering the horses, and asked and got it again from Smith. Pretty drive to Drammen just after leaving it again. Stream with the pretty lake. At Haugesund ferry at 1:40, over in 8 minutes. Then greased the wheels, which though greased at Monseter, and begun to creak. Very fine day. No horses. The forbud had passed only half an hour before, sat waiting in the carriage. Then bought a plate of raspberries, and ate them, and then at 3:25 a drop or two of rain, and had the carriage and us in it drawn under shelter. Off at least at 4:45, beautiful drive along the Dram River from Haugesund to Drammen. Lee pronounced like the English Lee, the same word as for Lea, Norwegian for the cultivated sloping ground between a river and the wooded or barren part of the top of a mountain. And here, Lee is the local name of this sort of land or district on our right. Very fine evening. Rain about half an hour before reaching Drammen, but not very much. More as soon as we got in, and very rainy night. Tea and pancakes, and over at 8:40. Fahrenheit 72.5 now at 10:50, and a soaking rainy night. Tuesday, August 6th. Much rain in the night until after 6 this morning, but fair or nearly so at 7:30 a.m. Fahrenheit 71.5 at 9 a.m. breakfast, at 9:15 in about half an hour, then had Smith giving us a lesson in norsk till about 1, afterwards till 1:40 talking to me, wish him to draw up a little grammar. Name, navn. The name, navnet. Names, navnet. The names, navnene. A name, et navn. A good name, et godt navn. The good name, det gode navn. The good names, de gode navne. No nobility. When the crown prince is here, he is viceroy. Count Wedel Jarlsberg is stadthoder, and as such is respected, but his nobility is nothing. Smith's is to be father-in-law, is noble, but not titre, titled. He is allowed to keep his nobility for life, and so are his children allowed to keep theirs, the that were born before the new constitution made in 1814, because the constitution is not retrospective, but nobody could be born noble in Norway after 1814. A new, large, excellent map of Norway, very dear, in progress. See this, and Croft's account of Norway. An English copper mining company at Talvignes, north latitude 70 degrees in Finnmarkens, Amte office established about 4 years ago. The Finns are pagans and nomad, are mountaineers, come down into the valleys in winter. Then inking over accounts till off at 3:12. From Drammen, the suspension bridge, the only one in Norway. Drammen consists of 3 towns of Bragernes, Strømsø and Tangen. 7,000 to 8,000 inhabitants. Drammen, the Liverpool of Norway, on account of the enterprise of its merchants. They had the first steamboat just out of Drammen, barley harvest, sheaves hung to dry around, from top to bottom, a pole 6 or 7 feet high, looking like sheaves columns, ears downwards. At Skillebekk, single house at 4:45, off at 5, and at 6:10 at Ravnsborg, single house for the scattered village at a little distance. Beautiful drive all the way from Drammen here, and fine afternoon. At 6:54, turn left from the Christiania road to Jonsrud to see Krokkleiva tomorrow morning. Beautiful drive. The road good, but evidently a by-road. About 7:30, close to a little cascade and mill and bridge, poor Smith, thrown from his, but not hurt. I could not reach the reins. The lad behind sat unmoved in spite of my signs to him jump down and stop the horses. They got to the middle of the bridge, then got the rein round near the forewheel. Backed and we might have been in a scrape, in the water over the wall several feet below the road, but Smith gathered himself up and came. And behaved very well. A man in a spring cart behind us came up and helped to get all right. At 7:55, Bærum. Picturesque good village belonging to Count Wedel Jarlsberg, where he was an iron foundry. The mineral chiefly comes from Arendal by water. Very little of it got here, but the foundry here, on account of the great quantity of wood, his property said to 1 million of species, but he is said to owe as much. Now, things go better with him. He is stadtholder and is doing better. He does big trade in iron and wood. Norway buys coal of England, gives us wood, but only the large wood. The smaller pays too much duty, i.e. that it pays the same as the large. Sold last year 500,000 species worth of herrings. The anchovies, caught chiefly in the Christiania fjord, caught in autumn. Smith paid last winter, in a private house, très bien, breakfast, dinner, and coffee, and supper, and well lodged. Our bill this morning, too much, and 4 species per day at the Hôtel du Nord at Christiania, enormous. At Jonsrud at 8:45, nice, large, comfortable room, ground floor, 1 bed, and the sofa made up into a bed. It was just beginning to rain as we elated, but was held off. Pancakes and tea at 9:50, then till 11, finishing inking over accounts. Fine day, Fahrenheit 71 degrees, now at 11 p.m. Wednesday, August 7th. Found on going to bed last night that I had lost my pincushion with the mourning ring from my uncle pinned on it. Think to go back to Drammen for it. Fine but dullish morning, Fahrenheit 68 degrees. At 7:30 a.m, Jonsrud, a good farmhouse, single house, inn. A few cottages scattered round about. Off at 8 to Krokkleiva. There at 10:20, 2.5 miles. Not in reality so far, but very hilly. Krokkleiva, single house, beautiful, hilly, woody, foresty drive to it. 2 good rooms, below stairs. Ordered breakfast, pancakes, surmelk, sour milk, the thick milk we had at Vestgård, and bread and butter, but breakfasted on the pancakes, the flatbread being mixed with pea meal and not good tasted. Absurd to compare the view with that from the Jura of Geneva, pretty, beautiful, but dull, no sun to enlighten it. Off from Jonsrud, back to Drammen at 1:30. I take the reins at 1:45, on the great high road at 2:40. Should have turned off direct to Christiania just before passing through Bærum, where the iron foundry is. at Ravnsborg at 3:15. Rain till just before Gjellebekk, there at 4:55. At Drammen at 6:40. No tidings of the ring. Likely for rainy night. Tea. Had the Drammen station man in, and the lad who went with us about the ring, all in vain. Anne and I out at 8:15 to 9, though it rained all the while, to see the bridge. About 250 yards long, 69 compartments of about 3.5 yards long each, i.e. that is 3.5 of my umbrellas. And Smith went to his friend the advocate and to the police. Rain all the while we were out, talk and think about the pellet and the ring. At last persuaded it was left in the house. Determined to offer 5 species for it, dull but fair till 2 p.m. The rain till very near 5, and then again from 6:45 for the rest of the evening more or less. Fahrenheit 70 degrees now at 11:45 p.m. Thursday, August 8th. Dull but fair, Fahrenheit 69 at 8. Breakfast over at 9:45. Had the chambermaid. Smith said we should give 5 species. Had the room and beds all turned over, during which time Smith gave us a lesson in norsk. Had the mistress and her factotum, long explanation, satisfied the ring was not left in the house. Found that it might have been got out of the sack. Began to think the boy that went with us from Ravnsborg to Jonsrud had taken it. Then at inking over accounts till 1:50. Almost fair, but then began to rain again when we set off at 2:45 and continued for about half an hour more or less. At 4:45, at the top of the hill, i.e. that is by the milestone, 1 mile from Drammen and 3 from Christiania, 'tis from this hill that the view is so beautiful over Drammen, its fine valleys and its branch of the Christiania fjord, as to be called the paradise. Beautiful drive all the way. At Christiania Hotel du Nord at 8:40, i.e. that is 9 p.m. by their clocks. Supper over at 10:40. Had carbonade de boeuf, like a German beefsteak. Good, and fish boiled and bread and butter. Fahrenheit 67 degrees at 11 p.m. Began to rain about before 10 a.m. and very rainy till after 2. More rain afterwards, but fair from about 4 p.m. for the rest of the afternoon and evening. Friday, August 9th. Fair but dull morning. Fahrenheit 67 degrees at 10 a.m. Breakfast at 10:30. Smith came at 11. Sent him about one thing or other. Arranging the advertisements in the Christiania paper about the ring. Had him back at 12 till 12:45, a lesson in norsk, and then looking over the map, looking over the route to Trondheim. No veritable shepherds in Norway as in the Pyrenees. The peasants, bønder, here send their sons and daughters to servants to take care of their cattle, but the sæter in the mountains here, not like the Cabernet Sauvignon d'Abant, Coulant of the Pyrenees. The Finns come down to the great fair at Elverum in winter. Latitude nearly 61 degrees, longitude nearly 30 degrees, to buy Christiania merchandise. On the snow by the great road from here to Minde, then on the ice on the lake to Korsegården. Thence, by the road on the snow to Elverum, 2 roads from here to Trondheim, and the new road, thence to Stockholm by Uppsala, opened lately. On the Trondheim road, coloured red on my map, latitude about 62 degrees, Dovrefield is Tofte. Toffe is a misprint, and the peasant of Tofte is one of the greatest in Norway, has 100 cows. Might reach Tofte the 3rd day. They stop to see Snøhetta, and there in one day from Tofte to Trondheim. Smith went to dinner at 1:45 to return in 1¼ hour. Wrote the above of today till now, 2:20. Having advanced my watch to the clocks here, the inking over Bremen memoranda till now 3:15, when Smith had been come back from dinner a few minutes, then out at 4 to the bookseller's shop to see the large map of Norway by Kaptein Munthe and Ram. Mr. Jäger had only 4 sheets large, 2 species each. Will be 18 sheets. Only 3 months in the year that the mountains can be surveyed from middle of June to middle of September. Captain in the mountains now, near Bergen, it may be 8 or 10 years before the map is completed. The 4 sheets, printed by Malo, the elder of the war depot, engraved by Pellissier in Paris. Perpetual rain here ever since we went. Sorry to be disappointed for the present. Might probably see Norway another summer, not next. Should like to have a naturalist with us, if Smith engaged, settled as an institutor, teacher, as he himself thinks at Stavanger. Expects for the first 3 years 300 species a year for 6 hours a day. And altogether 3 months vacancy per annum, 1 month at midsummer and 1 at Christmas, a week at Easter, and etc. He had 400 species a year as private tutor and board and lodging at Arendal. To write to Jäger to get a naturalist, i.e. that is a medicine for medical students, are the only ones who study mineralogy and botany. Direct to Messrs. Guldberg and Zvonkowski, a Christiania, and with an address, my letter to Mr. Jäger. He will send for the work on the mineralogy of Norway, large 4th volume, for me to see tomorrow. Bought 2, 1 for Anne, 1 for myself. Little Histories of Norway by Andreas Fay. Parish priest till Holt, 1834, for the use of boys' schools. Bought for 12 shillings, a little small octavo, folded into 16 pages, geographical notice of Norway. Advised his reducing the great map of Norway to a portable, though still large, size mounted for travellers. Gave him the address of Aerosmith geographer, Strand, London, as the greatest mappister in Europe. Came away at 5:35, sauntered a little way towards the Botanic Garden, afraid of rain. Home at 6. Looking over some views, not well lithographed, but interesting, as any views of Norway are to us, left on our table by our ex-guide, Mr. Poulsen, who it seems would be glad to accompany us through Norway. The views. Printed here in 1836 at the author's publisher. Norway, made in lithographed pictures after nature by P.F. Bergman. The pictures are accompanied by descriptive text, 1st volume. See view of Rørvigkleven I Lister. The scene is a cottage and water and zigzag road up mountains one side of narrow valley. Lister is a district along the sea in Kristiansand's Stiftamt. How striking that there should be in Norway a district, province or shire called Lister. Is this an ancient name? Anne and I walked about the room perhaps half an hour till 9:45, then till 12:10, she reading Lang's Norway, that we found on our table on returning home this afternoon, and making extracts, and I reading over Mr. Poulsen's papers, nothing particular, and then inking over his book 10 pages back. Dull but fair till about 7 p.m, and then some rain, but not very much. Fahrenheit 67¼ degrees, now at 12:15 tonight. Saturday, August 10th. Very fine morning sun and Fahrenheit 71.5 degrees at 9:15 a.m. Breakfast at 9:30 in half an hour. Before and after till now, 10:15, inking over pencil memoranda. Smith came immediately. Had Smith till now 1.5, i.e. that is from 10:15 to 1:30 equals 3.25 hours at the pronunciation of the Norsk alphabet and reading page 1 of our little Norsk history bought yesterday, and talking over the map of the country, etc., then till 3.5 studying over what we had read. Smith went to the landlord to make sundry inquiries, and Anne and I read on. I wrote while Anne translated, and read aloud till now 5:35, and then went out. Sauntered along the streets, past Kappelin's and Dahl's bookseller's shop, and then to Jäger's. Could not get the work on mineralogy for me to look at. Had seen in Dahl's window a cookery book. No lady can live alone, she must board in some family. Smith knows nothing of this. All this left to the femmes, dames, all the Countess Wedel de Jarlsberg herself, who is the head, arranges the table. Do the ladies dine at table? Can they cook and preside? Yes. All is arranged before dinner time, and the servants do the rest. We passed a nice-looking lady. She acknowledged Smith. He coloured. I inquired if she was de la plus haute société. Yes. Captain of artillery, whose picture we had seen in Dahl's window, one of the first men here. The lady, an actress at the theatre, but very respectable, not publicly known, but it is said that she is fiancée to the captain's son. He is 24, she is 22. The captain objects, but not because she is an actress, but because she does not understand cooking. But is it not easy to learn? Ah, no. Can she not learn in 6 months? Ah, no. It takes 5 years. What? Is it therefore more difficult to learn to cook than to learn a foreign language? One can learn a language in 6 months, of course, but if we must speak well, etc., it takes a lifetime, said I. Yes, true. For the gents here are very difficult for the cuisine cooking. Poor Smith afterwards explained that it was not only cooking, but the whole science of the household. The husband provided the meat, earns the living, and the wife prepares it, and if she cannot manage well, nothing, no income, can suffice. He spoke of his mother as very learned, i.e., that is in the science of cooking/housekeeping, and his fiancée is also, I suppose, savant, learned after the same sort. Came in at 6:45 and dinner immediately. Anchovies, first time very good, highly seasoned and spiced. 4 marks or more per barrel containing 200 to 300 fish. A little side table with anchovies, herrings, etc. with which one begins the dinner, says one Swiss boy. Had just written so far at 8.5 to 7.5 lines, all struck through, then walked about the room with Anne, and finished writing out at the other end of this book Saturday, 13th of July, from the pencil, my account book. Reading over Norsk again till 10:40. Fine day. Fahrenheit 67.25 degrees at 11:20 p.m. Sunday, August 11th. Fine sunny morning, Fahrenheit 66 degrees at 10 a.m. Breakfast at 10:30, in about half an hour. Then at Norsk till about 12:30 when Smith came. Had been up late, not quite well, would have taken wormwood or rhubarb. Just beginning our lesson when Mr. Jäger came and sat till 2:40. Then I proposed Smith's going to dine, talked over manners here, great dinners, etc. It seems, after all, that the great dinners are chiefly public dinners for Stortingets men and other government. Employees and ladies not then present. At private dinners, the ladies remain as long as the men, the cloth never removed, no upper cloth removed as in France when dessert is brought, but one and the same cloth remains not soiled, one hopes. Drink from 2 or 3 to 4 or 5. Drink toasts, a bottle to each gentleman, 7 or 8 sorts of wine among the wealthy. A side table, as mentioned yesterday by the boy, first soup, then 2 or more meats, etc. True, as Laying observes, that in private the housekeeper sits by the mistress of the house and gets and gives every one what is wanted. For 20 or 30 guests, there would be 3 or 4 servants to wait. The Norse drink much wine. Jäger knows a gent who can drink 6 bottles without being intoxicated. There are femmes, Smith calls them dames, here who go out to arrange drinks, and according to Jäger, the lady of the house is in her salon to receive her company instead of being in the kitchen to cook. The spruce fir, according to Jäger, who better understands the thing than Smith, is the white wood and called grantre. Our spruce fir, the Scotch fir, called furu, is the redwood, the best. The trees never taped here. The Dutch take the little wood, the French the next in size, and the English the largest, which largest comes from Østerdalen, though which passes the great road to Trondheim. No trade in wood at Bolkesjø because no river there to float it down. Smith's stomach deranged, would have taken Artemisia wormwood, absinthe malurt, with a little eau de vie. The common remedy here, as the aperitif they commonly take, rhubarb. Does not know of the plant of which we make tarts in England. At 2:55, in 25 minutes, Anne and I read aloud the evening service and second lesson for this morning and evening. We have only Anne's little New Testament with us and her little prayer book, and the collect, etc., for 12th Sunday after Trinity. Then, wrote so far of today, rain at 3, thunder shower, and once thunder, rain continued, raining now at 3:50 and likely for rain. Smith at 4:35 to 6:35, and all the time at norsk. Dinner at 6:45. Then at norsk, and Anne at that or reading laying, and walked about, and at norsk again till 10:20. Rainy from 3 p.m. to between 8 and 9, then fair. Fahrenheit 65.5 degrees now at 10:20 p.m. Monday, August 12th. Fine morning sun, Fahrenheit 63 degrees at 9:40 a.m. Breakfast at 9:50. Smith came soon after. Had Mr. Paulson. He asked the price for our carriage, for 2 English gentlemen arrived yesterday. I would think about it. The landlord said 50 species, the value, but I must take less. Out at 11:40, by the back of the town along the little road into the Drammen road at some distance towards the Presque Isle, the public garden of the inhabitants of Christiania. 3 boat stations. We stood at the middle one, beautiful view. The pavilion in sight on the Presque Isle, distant right, and a bridge over the fjord at the foot of the pavilion hill. No company there yesterday on account of the weather. A drop or 2 of rain as we came in at 2:15. Said I would take 40 for the carriage. The English gents will not take it. The landlord here offers me 35 species. I decline this. Think to post it to Gothenburg. The carriage far on board the steamer will be 18 species, and Anne and myself 9 species each, exclusive of sundries. 'Tis now 3:25, nor passport visé stamped, nor anything done. Had Smith and the landlord, about the carriage, etc., sold it to a medical professor for 40 species. Dinner at 6, and Smith left us to dine and returned at 7:15, then paid him, read a little. He satisfied, went away at 8 to call us at 4:15 and see us off at 4:30. Then, till 10, busy about one thing or other. Rain about 3.5 for some while, then fair afterwards. Lay down at 10:30, having taken off my dress, black stuff, petticoat, drawers and shoes and stockings, and undressed. Tuesday, August 13th. Fahrenheit 61 degrees, and very fine morning at 4:30. Off at 4:45, on board at 4:40. The Prince Carl, captain, off at 5. Squeamish in about an hour. Beautiful fjord. At 6, returned to the covered deck, or eating room, and dozed. The men breakfasted at 8, and Anne had tea. I dozed on till 9, when Anne and I ate about a quarter of our rice cakes. At 9.5, took up one and sat down, 20 or 30 passengers, among them 3 naval officers whose boat came from their 18-gun brig lying by. At 10:20, stopped again, near another little landing place at Moss, and here about 20 more passengers left us. Moss, very picturesque. A mere suburb scattered at the water's edge, the white church on higher ground behind the town, small. Everywhere fir forests, feathering down, of town to the water's edge, rock, hill, mountain, all covered with fir. Land close to us on both sides now, as generally numerous islands. Perhaps we passed the Drammen fjord about 20 minutes before stopping. Off Moss, very fine scenery, rock and forest, sick about 12. At 12:30, another passenger left us. And we pass a little town with long line of wooden building all along the water. At 1:30 to 2:45, dinner, and the captain very civilly came up afterwards and talked some time. Anne and I at the lesser of the 2 tables. Pea soup, boiled salmon, roast beef, and veal cut into slices and both together on one dish. Sponge cake, roll of almond cake, melon almonds, and raisins all handed round. The cakes and melon and dessert was down the middle of the table from the first. Sick and returned all my dinner. At 3:15 I sat as before, leaning over the vessel's side. Fredriksvern till 4, landed at 4:10 in 2 or 3 minutes, and on board again at 5:15, 10 or 12 minutes before heavy rain. Very picturesque, little wood-built town with its large grand place, citadel or garrison, arsenal, and line of dry docks with several small vessels in them on the stocks. The long line of wood-built, red-painted, dry, covered docks along the water's edge might be taken for a line of warehouses. Little battery whitewashed tower at a little distance in the water, shallow, apparently on the southwest of the town. Singular Mamelone bare granite, low mountains all around about the little town. Neat little whitewashed church. No sign of an inn. We walked about, glad of the hour's release from our steamer. A great many of our passengers left us, ladies and gents, and drove in carriages off the country. The scenery is very beautiful all the way, difficult to say where it is best. Now at 6, off again, still rain, and the motion, and I must be sick again? The scenery, the town, in mist and rain, beautiful. But as one of the gents is observing, hopes we shall be clear of the rocks before dark. Oh, yes, long before. 90 horsepower, always go 2 sea miles, German miles per hour. We have come today about 10 English miles an hour. I had hardly written the above when I found myself squeamish, and about half an hour after, about 6:20, sick again. Sat 1.5 hours on our wet barrel, the rain just over, close to the helm, and from that time sick all night until at 7:40. Wednesday, August 14th. This morning, when I'd just passed the Swedish Tower and Battery, I left my night bath, to which Anne and I had returned at 8 last night, on the sofa and looked about. Gothenburg was in sight, but foremost Klippen and its piles of deals, wooden boards and much shipping. This fjord, all bare low granite, rock, no woods, or pasture till close to Gothenburg, little bits here and there, of garden and bits of garden or shrubbery, or a few clumps of trees, not firs. Comparison between the two fjords about Xtiania, how striking the contrast, yet here the rocks are fine. The Prince Carl stops at Klippen till this afternoon and then starts for Copenhagen. Here we arrive at 8. We're on board the little steamer, about 6 ladies and 6 gentlemen, and 10 to 12 more in the second Plats. At 8:30, and landed at Gothenburg, and we're at Todd's Hotel in 3 or 4 minutes at 9. Thankful to be on the terra firma again. Never passed a worse water night, sick at shortish intervals, or retching all the night till 7:40 this morning, and even a little retching on board the little steamer. When sick, I had to crawl off my sofa to the tin-spitting box close to Anne, only one between us, whose feet were vis-a-vis and touching mine, and while sick, I sat on the floor. The captain very civil to offer me a mattress, but I was too ill to bear speaking or moving, too ill even to be helped. Anne not much better, but she slept and snored towards morning, and I had no remembrance of having at all. The night was terribly long. I'd not heard it rain, probably not much rain after 8 p.m, which sent us in. The custom house officers very civil. Just looked into our things on board the Prince Carl and let us bring all away. 2 horse harness done up in matting. Anne's portmanteau and her bag that I had in our Norwegian wood hat box, instead of the little carriage bontupad, our pelisse and habit and frills, etc. At Todd's at 9, at 9:30, breakfast, tea, and our 2 beds made ready in horrendous room. Could not give us better today. Thankful to be so well off. Neither of us could eat breakfast, washed a little. Anne laid down at 10 and I at 10:30, but could not sleep and got up at 11 and sat on the bed writing all of above of today till now 11:25. It began to rain just after our arrival here, or began about 9:15 and rained for about an hour. Great deal of rain since our being away. Thinks the weather so against us. Think of posting to Stockholm, the sea. The water is too terrible to us both. Then till 1, looking over accounts, writing and adding up. Our Norway journey seemed to have cost in Norwegian money 182 spesidaler, 4 mark and 18 shillings, equaling about £36 and 12 pence.